Good morning, USA. It's RSBN Live, of course, at 9:32 this morning. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for streaming in with us here at the network as we get ready to see the GOP Leadership Conference press conference, which is usually slated for 10 a.m. But today, sometimes it starts at 10:30 in the morning. Obviously, a bigger day when it comes to all these specifics about the big, beautiful bill and the fact that this big, beautiful bill is America first. When you look at the details of the bill, as I did yesterday, and as we hear from the White House, they now have released 50 reasons why the Senate should pass the big, beautiful bill. You see Stephen Miller on there as well, talking about it on X and on social media and out there, just defending this thing after those comments from Elon yesterday. But what we're looking at is, if you remember, DOGE is all about ridding the government of fraud, waste, and abuse. So we know that's true, right? And DOGE, and it's going to continue to do the following thing, to continue to rid the government of fraud, waste, and abuse. In the sense of, think about it, remember all the millions of dollars and billions of dollars that were being sent to other countries for woke ideology programs and that kind of thing? Well, this bill is not doing any of that. The money is going toward the American people. And then also there's tax cuts, there's strengthening our border, there's so many great things that are happening, and it does take money to fuel a number of these items. So when you look at it, it's, again, the money, our tax dollars, going to things that we want in this country for our protection, for our safety, and all of that. So that's the way I see it. That's my personal opinion on it. But outside of that, again, DOGE is great. I love the Department of Government Efficiency because all of the corruption of the spending, and many times, remember, many programs across our country or around the world that were all anti-America, all woke, all terrible. And that's why DOGE is continuing. And of course, the cabinet leaders will be looking at their departments and saying, okay, where can we cut the corruption out or the wasteful spending on this woke problem? Because the list of 50 that the White House put out just yesterday, today is going to be one of those days where this laptop is going to come in handy, because I'm going to be looking at it a lot, because there are 50 reasons why the Senate should pass the big, beautiful bill. So anyway, we're going to go to the GOP leadership press conference, though, which will start at about 10 o'clock this morning. If it's late, sometimes it is. It sometimes starts at 10:30. We'll go to that as well. So, all live here on Wednesday, June 4th. Okay. So let's look at some specifics, shifting gears slightly before we get to the big, beautiful bill. This is some video, I guess, live right now in the Capitol halls there. So this is live right now. So if anybody stops by, maybe we can listen to any of the anybody from Congress that would stop by the camera there. In the meantime, what we can do is go to a video about energy in America. This is all from the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum. He posted a video about energy in our country. And this video, I believe, was from Alaska. So we're going to go to that video here as soon as I hear that it's ready. And then also we saw that the new presidential portrait is up on the White House website. So we'll take a look at that as well. So Director, are we ready to go for the energy in America? Okay, let's take a look at that.
Here we are in Alaska, right next to the Alyeska pipeline, and what an incredible day we've had. The prior administration sanctioned Alaska more than they did Iran. We're here to turn that around. Right next to this pipeline will be this beautiful twin, an LNG pipeline that will cross the same path to help bring LNG and lower priced electricity to Alaskans, to our national defense installations here, and then also to be able to sell to our allies. This is the key for us to have prosperity at home and peace abroad.
You and your colleagues are going to transform this planet. And we're going to do it dominantly here in the United States because of President Trump.
We need to understand this opportunity that exists here in Alaska, and we can't pass it up.
Part of American greatness is building remarkable things with innovation, with speed, and with care. And the place where that can happen is right here.
just like all the cabinet leaders out there doing a great job, Secretary Burgum in Alaska recently. We're just taking a live look right now inside the halls of the Capitol building. Of course, all this discussion about the big, beautiful bill happening. We're going to go to the White House actual website and read what the White House is saying about the 50 reasons why the Senate should pass this bill. Again, if you're just joining us right now, when you look at it, DOGE is all about cleaning up, corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse. And what the big, beautiful bill is doing is bringing in America First policies and America First things for we the people. And so it's kind of cut and dry when you look at it. So we're going to go to that in just a second. Speaking of the White House website, let's look at the portrait, that new portrait that President Trump has out there. Of course, now it is on the White House website, so whitehouse.gov. You see it says Donald J. Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States. So great to see that new presidential portrait. And another thing I like about the portrait is the fact that I do like blue ties, but red is MAGA, right? So it's great to see the red MAGA tie there for the new presidential portrait. All right, let's stick with whitehouse.gov right now, and let's look at a few things, as we may have some live pictures from either the Capitol, the White House, or even inside the Capitol today. Is, who knows who wants to step up to the mic and talk, but we will see that with that GOP leadership press conference that will be slated for just about 20 minutes from now. And of course, we have a number of great sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. These are various positions that we see a live camera, of course. The one on the top left will be the GOP leadership press conference. And I believe the bottom left is from inside the Capitol. Bottom right, I believe, is the Capitol building. So live all the time right now, RSBN Live. Thanks again for joining us. Of course, tonight, President Trump will be having an event at the White House. Robert McNeely, our host, will be here to cover that event starting at 6 Eastern. In the meantime, we're just looking at the news of the day right here on Right Side. Let's go with allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, one of the great sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. We know that President Trump slashed the prescription drug prices. Well, All Family Pharmacy doing the same thing. Of course, 20% off. This sale goes into the end of this month, so end of June. Also, there are more than 200 essential medications available for you on there. Methylene blue, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and then some of the basics that you've heard of too, amoxicillin, penicillin, that kind of thing. So all you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, get that 20% off. All right, so it's 9:40 Wednesday, June 4th. Looking forward to going live there. To the bottom right screen there, you see that's the GOP leadership press conference where that's going to happen. It's slated again for 10 this morning. The past couple conferences that we've covered, I've seen that it usually would start at now 10:30. So we'll see. We'll monitor it live. The picture on your left, of course, is just a live picture there at the Capitol as various members of Congress, obviously the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, so Congress in full, walking by there on the camera. So a number of people saying different things about the big, beautiful bill, but let's go to what the White House is saying specifically. And if you'd like to today's more of, I'm not going to say an educational day or anything, but it's more of a day that I'm literally going to look at the whitehouse.gov website here, because that's the 50 reasons that the White House is saying that the Senate should pass the bill. So if you'd like to follow along, say you're watching on TV right now or on your phone or your iPad or your Microsoft Surface, whatever you're watching right now, if you do have an extra device, maybe another phone or an iPad sitting around, whether you're at work or at home or wherever you're watching, if you're just listening, please, in the sense of driving, don't do that while you're driving, of course. Thanks for listening while we do some commentary here as we get ready for the GOP leadership press conference. All right, so I was reading through the bill yesterday, and I was thinking, if we're going to spend money, I'd rather it be for the advancement and safety of the American people than for some woke program from overseas. Here are the 50 reasons that the Senate should pass this America First big, beautiful bill. Now this, again, just a real quick side note, again, at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and with any network and with any news publication, there is an op-ed, right? So an opinion editorial. So this is opinion editorial right now, just for some context. by me on the whitehouse.gov, just sharing with you what the White House is saying about the big, beautiful bill. So from there, obviously, you can decide. That's our freedom, right? I can decide, you can decide, but we're seeing a lot of positive things with this big, beautiful bill. So whitehouse.gov, so if you just type in whitehouse.gov, when you click on that, you'll see the words "America is back" with President Trump walking outside the White House there. Another screen pops up saying "Honoring our vets." Top left corner is where the next button is, and then you click that and click News, and then you click Articles. And that article says 50 wins in the one big, beautiful bill. So here are the 50 wins, according to the White House here, why President Donald J. Trump's one big, beautiful bill is the best chance in a generation to pass critical reforms for which Americans voted. So when we look at that, we already look at the reform of America. We know that we have a president that is already out of the gate since January 20th in that building, the Capitol right there, speaking on behalf of the people that he was, of course, hired by. And we, the people, are on that team. We want our country to be made great again. So here are the 50. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the words in bold. Some of them are not in bold. We'll see which ones I go with. But I'm going to literally be really transparent here and show you this is the White House big, beautiful bill. So whitehouse.gov. And this is where I'm looking at this information if you'd like to follow along. We know what others are saying out there about it, but I'm not, I don't work at the White House, right? I'm not employed by the government. This is just my opinion on it. And again, DOGE is always great for waste, fraud, and abuse, getting rid of that in the government. But the spending that we've been seeing that DOGE was exploiting were all woke programs in our country and around the world. We're talking a lot of money, millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. I think it was 1.6 trillion actually that was found through DOGE that were just ridiculous spending. The spending that's happening here for this bill is all America first, we the people in mind. And Stephen Miller, if you'd like to follow him on X, is really breaking a lot of it down with all the really ins and outs of it. He is more of an expert than I am on this, of course. But Stephen Miller, a great person to follow on X and just read a lot about it. All right, let's finally dive in. Again, I'm going to look right here, 50 wins in the big, beautiful bill. So if you'd like to follow along, as we await this press conference by the GOP leadership, it's scheduled for 10 a.m. It may start a bit later, which gives us a little bit more time on the 50 to read. But outside of that, of course, we have a lot of great sponsors here at the network. This is one of two live broadcasts today. Later today at 6 p.m. Eastern, RSBN host Robert McNeely will be in studio, and he'll be covering an event there that will be happening at the White House with President Trump participating. So we're looking forward to that coverage as well. Okay, here are the 50 reasons why President Donald J. Trump's one big, beautiful bill is the best chance in a generation to pass critical reforms for which Americans voted. Number one, it delivers the largest tax cut in American history. So that means an extra $5,000 in Americans' pockets with a double-digit % decrease to their tax bills. Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 will pay around 15% less in taxes. Number two, it makes the Trump tax cuts permanent, preventing the largest tax increase ever. Number three, out of 50 from the White House right here, it raises Americans' take-home pay by as much as $13,300 and wages by as much as $11,600. Number four, it reverses the spending curse plaguing Washington, D.C. The bill delivers the largest deficit reduction in nearly 30 years, with $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings, the largest single reduction in mandatory spending in our country's history. Number five, it delivers no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Number six, it provides historic tax cuts for seniors. Number seven, it finishes President Trump's border wall. Number eight, it boosts Border Patrol and ICE agents on the front lines with the largest border security investment in history. Number nine, out of 50, and we'll take some breaks here and there. Number nine, it increases the child tax credit to $2,500 per family. Number 10, it protects Medicaid for Americans who truly need it. This bill eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse by ending benefits for at least 1.4 million illegal immigrants who are gaming the system. Number 11, it implements popular work requirements for able-bodied Americans receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. Let's stop there for a second. If you're just joining us right now on Right Side Broadcasting Network, what you're looking at is a live picture on the left from inside the Capitol building. On the bottom right, that's where the GOP Leadership press conference, it's a press conference that is usually a weekly press conference that is happening today. Of course, on Wednesday, in about 12 minutes, it's scheduled to start. If it's late, we'll still stay here with you and cover that. After the press conference, we'll be going to a video of Vice President J.D. Vance, who spoke at an event yesterday. We'll have that in its entirety. So other than that, at 6 o'clock today, Robert McNeely will be in studio as President Trump will hold an event outside or at the White House. So looking forward to both events live. Of course, right now, the GOP Leadership press conference, and then a bit later today with that 6 p.m. start time right here on RSBN. So all of it brought to you by some great sponsors. Colonial Metals Group. All you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. You see that QR code right there. So you can just go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Learn all about gold and silver, tax-sheltered IRA, 401k, all backed in gold and silver, and it's 100% tax-free. So a great company right there. You can get that free info kit to get you just started there by going to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. All right, so it's 9:49 this morning. Looking live, 3 places there. Well, 4 actually. We're live here in Alabama. There's D.C. and all those 3 pictures there. That's the Capitol building on the bottom 2. And then the top left is the GOP Leadership press conference. A good sign is that the press is already sitting there. Sometimes, if you're in the room, you learn that the press conference was moved to 10:30. Let's see what's going on there at the bottom right of the screen. To be honest with you, I'm not going to know every single congressperson that we known to man. That's a lot of people. But let's listen in on what this person's talking about.
Modest reforms to Medicaid so it preserves the program for our seniors, disabled, children with disabilities, and implements those work requirements which the vast majority of Americans support for able-bodied young Americans who have no dependents.
What have you seen so far, and what do you think of the rescissions package that's been sent over? Is there anything in there that gives you a bit of pause?
Yeah, I'm going to take a closer look at it. I think there's a few members who have maybe some concerns, but I want to take a closer look at that.
What do you think about the idea? Obviously, there's some seemingly frivolous things in USAID, but it's also about projecting U.S. soft power abroad. Is that something you're going to be keeping an eye on and trying to?
Well, I really got to go through the bill and see exactly what's in there. But in general, there's going to be members who don't agree with every single cut that DOJ has made. And if it's going to be impactful to our specific districts, we need to take a closer look at that.
Does it make it tough that it's sort of a take it or leave it?
Well, that's the thing. You always put like good and bad together in a bill. So you've got to figure out whether a bill is more good or more bad. Mm-hmm. That's the way it works around here.
Did you hear from Senator Mullen in that meeting? Did he make any?
No, he didn't speak.
Okay. He was just in the meeting hanging out?
Yeah, he was just in the meeting hanging out.
Thank you.
Man, what's your dog's name?
Okay, so members of Congress sounding off about the big, beautiful bill, and we're in the middle right now of reading from the White House the 50 reasons why these are wins for the American people. And again, this is my choice here to say, well, which one do I believe in? Which one do I want here? And again, you have to do your own research. I was reading through the big, beautiful bill yesterday, and I'm reading the reports from both sides of the aisle. I'm watching what Stephen Miller's saying on X. I'm seeing what the White House is saying. And from this vantage point, again, have I covered Congress for decades? No. But do I have common sense? Yes. And so when I think about that, I'm like, okay, so where this money that's being spent, where's it going? Is it going to these foreign governments, or is it going to woke programs in our country? No, it's going to America first. It's going to we the people. So I'm going to continue to read the White House information here from whitehouse.gov if you'd like to continue to follow along. Number 13 out of 50. We're on 13 out of 50 at this point. Again, as we await that press conference to start in about 8 minutes. It reverses electric vehicle mandates that let radical climate activists set the standards for American energy. Let me stop there quickly, because obviously, if they do start at 10 a.m., I'm not going to get through all 50 here. So what I want to do is, those of you that really care about what's going on out there and really want to know more about the big, beautiful bill, there's 3 things I would encourage you to do. 1, you go to whitehouse.gov. You can check out the article about this from the White House, the 50 reasons why the Senate should pass this thing. Number 2, check out what Stephen Miller is saying on X. And then also, number 3 is really to look at the actual bill, which you can find at congress.gov, which I did yesterday. It is grueling. It is not easy. It's not, 1 + 1 = 2 reading. It's a little bit more difficult, but at the end of the day, when you start reading through, then you start getting a feel of, that I understand this, I understand that. It talks about no tax on overtime. All that stuff's in there. So those are the 3 things. Congress.gov to see the bill for yourself, whitehouse.gov to check out the 50 reasons that we're going over here. And then also, of course, Stephen Miller really breaking it down on X as well. And of course, we're bringing you live coverage today from both sides of the aisle. We're seeing people talk about the big, beautiful bill there. We know that number 14 out of 50 is it ends Biden's war on American energy. Number 15, it streamlines a permitting process so America can get building again. Number 16, it refills the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to safeguard America's energy security. Number 17, it repeals and rescinds every green corporate welfare subsidy in Democrats' so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Number 18, it stops illegal immigrants from receiving tax credits and remittances sent to foreign countries. Number 19 out of 50, it supports small businesses by increasing the Section 199A deduction to 23%, promoting the growth and success of Main Street. Number 20, it incentivizes Made in America. So the bill rewards companies that build their products in America with lower taxes and allows Americans who buy an American-made vehicle to fully deduct their auto loan interest. Let me stop there. Again, if you're just joining us right now, about 5 minutes out from the GOP Leadership Press Conference, just going over right now on whitehouse.gov, the post that is all about the 50 wins of the big, beautiful bill. And so when you look at it from that 30,000-foot view, again, I was giving you that just commentary. Again, this is opinion editorial right now, which just being fully in context of it. As you know, networks and newspapers and online, everything has their own op-ed sections, that kind of thing. And we at Right Side Broadcasting Network have that First Amendment right that RSBN allows all of us that work here to have, is our personal opinion about something. Now, again, what you hear most of the time from me is, we love God, we love the Constitution, we love our country, and we do. We love President Trump, and we love freedom, and of course we do. But today, we're going into a little bit more deeper situation, because the big, beautiful bill has everything to do with America first. This is a very big start of this golden age. We already see the golden age happening. But it comes down to, do you want your money being spent on foreign governments' woke ideology programs, and here in this country, which Doge so greatly found that, hey, all this money is being spent on all this terrible junk around the country and around the world, and it stopped, right? So we stopped all of that. And so any spending that's being done now is to America, is to safety for our country, is to bolstering the southern border, increasing the building process for the wall. Also, so many other details, including the very sharp tax cuts that we're going to have here in this country. Number 18, again, it stops illegal immigrants from receiving tax credits. Number 21, it creates new Trump savings accounts for newborns. Number 22, it expands access to child care for hardworking American families. Number 23, it provides a historic increase in funding for the U.S. Coast Guard. Number 24, it supports building new factories to grow domestic business operations. Number 25, it helps American farmers, producers, and ranchers compete and sell products in foreign markets. Number 26, it holds woke elitist universities accountable by increasing the endowment tax on large universities. Let's stop there again. We remember that when in 2024, President Trump, of course, was won this election in a landslide. And all of these things that I'm reading in this bill have to do with campaign promises, promises made, promises kept. Those 20 core promises that we go over here at the network, we dive into those. And we're diving into this as well of what is in this bill. Again, I've been looking at the bill. I looked at it yesterday. I was paging through. Did I read every single word in that 1,000+ page bill? No, but I did look at it more than some that are out there probably talking about it. And let's go live right now to the next member of Congress and hear what they're saying about it.
It's going to add hundreds of billions of dollars to the deficit in the next few years.
Do you wish he did this before the House passed it?
No, I mean, he trusted them, and I think his trust was misplaced, and so I think he has a right to be upset with our leadership.
Why do you think he's doing this now that he's left his role in the government, though?
It may be why he left his role in the government. I mean, he started to figure out these guys aren't serious about cutting spending. They never were. I mean, when they stood up at the State of the Union and clapped, when the president announced all the waste that DOJ had found that they were going to cut, it was kind of surreal because these are the same guys who were clapping that funded all of that waste. Like, it's their job to not waste the money.
Are you in favor of the $9.4 billion resistance package that the president sent over?
Yeah, that's a $1 billion solution to a $1 trillion problem. I think it's excellent. I've never seen them cut $1 here. If we actually cut $9 billion, that's amazing. But the problem is we need to cut like $1 trillion. Our deficits are $2 trillion.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
What's your math on what the bill adds?
There's one thing that the member there forgot to mention. The fact that DOJ was all about and still all about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. You remember all the things that DOJ found. Domestic and foreign funding to woke, terrible ideology programs, when we all were shocked to hear that millions of dollars were going to this random program in some other country that is promoting a woke ideology. So all of that was terrible spending. That was waste, fraud, and abuse. Any spending that's going on in the big, beautiful bill is America first for the safety of this country. That's what I see here when I'm reading the big, beautiful bill, which I did read some of it yesterday, but also reading here from the 50 wins from the White House about the big, beautiful bill. This is really something, again, that is not lining the pockets of politicians. This money is going to an increase of staffing on the southern border. It's going to drop taxes by upwards of 13 to 15% for people that make $30,000 to $80,000. It takes money to take care of certain things in this country, and now they're crying foul. What are you doing spending this money? Well, guess what? The things that President Trump talked about in the campaign is what we voted for. And did we not vote for to seal the border? Did we not vote for lower taxes? Did we not vote for all of these things? So if I'm missing something, okay, I get it. But here's the point. Again, my advice, and I'll just stop there and I'll just read the 50 and we'll get to that press conference, is simple. Stephen Miller on X, you go ahead and follow what he's saying on there. And also check out the bill for yourself if you'd like, congress.gov. And then if you'd like to follow along here at whitehouse.gov, I'm reading the 50 wins as to why this should pass in the Senate. Before we get to all that, we have sponsors to thank, of course, angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. If you'd like to get the Miracle Cream, it's right there, but also there are other products as well. So you can use the RSBN promo code by going to angelpaste.com and peruse the products and maybe get a gift if you'd like for someone right there at angelpaste.com. As it's just past the top of the hour, 10:01. Thanks so much for tuning in to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. A bit later today, we will have Robert McNeely in studio at 6 o'clock Eastern. He'll be covering an event at the White House. President Trump will be participating in that event, so we're looking forward to that as well. Looking live right now on the bottom right of your screen, that's where the GOP Leadership press conference is slated to start at any minute. It's slated for 10. It may start a little later. We'll be here for it. And then on the left side, you're seeing just cameras out there, of course, with members of Congress, you know, both from, of course, the House and the House of Representatives. the Senate and the House of Representatives. So they're walking by, and some people are stopping by talking about the big, beautiful bill. So what we're going to do is, again, I'm going to continue to rapid pace read through the 50 wins here of why this is something that the Senate should pass. And then on top of that, what we can do is go live directly to that GOP press conference. Now, if I don't get through all 50, no problem. We can also read the rest of it after the GOP press conference, as we will be going to the Vice President's recent speech within that 24/7 news cycle from just yesterday, so you get that full context on what he was saying. And if for some reason we can't get back to the 50 reasons, again, I'm reading it right here, you can always go to whitehouse.gov and you go to articles, news articles, and then you can check this out. All right, so number 25 out of 50, it helps American farmers, producers, and ranchers compete and sell products in foreign markets. It holds woke, elitist universities accountable by increasing the endowment tax on large universities. I did read that earlier. Number 27, it protects hardworking taxpayers by canceling Biden's illegal and unfair student loan bailouts. Number 28, it ends taxpayer-funded sex changes. Number 29, it's a once-in-a-generation chance to revolutionize our nation's defense capabilities and protect the homeland against new threats by funding President Trump's Golden Dome. Number 30, it enhances the capacity of America's naval fleet. It modernizes air traffic control. It strengthens SNAP benefits. Number 33, it implements critical program integrity and cost containment provisions in Medicaid to strengthen it for future generations. This is all from an article that was posted by the White House just yesterday. Number 34 out of 50, it safeguards Second Amendment rights by removing tax and registration requirements for firearm silencers and eliminating silencers from the National Firearms Act. Number 35, it provides critical disaster recovery funding to farmers, producers, and ranchers. Let's go to Mike Johnson. Well, nope, they were not going to stop there for the Speaker of the House, but they're on their way to that bottom screen, to the bottom right. So as soon as we see them on the screen there, we'll go there live. Let's go there live right now and just listen in.
Recognize that a $4.5 trillion tax hike would be devastating to America's economy, and we need economic growth. You saw it in 2017 when President Trump cut taxes. He made America competitive again, and it generated revenue. The CBO, by the way, that is spewing all these false numbers, they were wrong by the tune of $1.5 trillion. They're wrong again, and I think most people know that, that are studying what economic growth has been in the past and what happens if we actually have good, sound tax policy like this bill produces.
Thank you.
Okay, so Steve Scalise on his way to that top left picture there on your screen as we get ready for the GOP Leadership Press Conference. You saw Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, walking right by the reporters because he's going right to more reporters right there on the top left of your screen. Let's see if we can finish the top 50 wins or reasons why the Senate should pass this big, beautiful bill. This is on whitehouse.gov. If we don't get to the end of it, you can always check it out there. We're on number 36. It provides funding to rebuild America's military. Number 37, it expands health savings accounts to give Americans greater choice and flexibility in how they spend their money. Number 38, it gives $10,000 bonuses annually over the next 4 years to Border Patrol and ICE agents on the front lines. Number 39, it incentivizes scholarships that empower American families and students to choose the education that best fits their needs. We're going to round out the last 10 here, 40 through 50. But again, would you rather the money go to foreign governments or woke programs like Doge found that was happening, and to some domestic programs, woke stuff that Doge was like, hey, millions of dollars going to these ridiculous programs? Remember, President Trump would read a list of how ridiculous these things were. And so thank God for Doge. Thank God for what Doge is going to continue to do. The money that's being spent now within this bill is all about America first and we the people and safety and the tax cuts and on. So it's not like the dollars are going to go to line the pockets of President Trump or anything. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that is America first all the way. That is my opinion. If you disagree, that's okay. We still agree on a number of things. We love God. We love the Constitution. We love freedom. We love President Trump and we love MAGA. So I'm going to continue on here and read the following things here as we get ready for that GOP press conference. Number 39. Actually, we're at number 40. It repeals Democrats' insane attack on the gig economy. Number 41, it reforms and streamlines the federal student loan program to drive down tuition costs and simplify repayment plans. Number 42, again, reading from whitehouse.gov right here if you want to join and follow along if you'd like. Number 42, again, it strengthens accountability for students and taxpayers on federal student loans. Number 43, it implements critical reforms to Pell Grants to make sure they prioritize students who truly need financial assistance while promoting completion. Number 44, it increases timber sales on federal lands. Number 45, it authorizes the sale of expanded spectrum MHZ to strengthen rural broadband. Number 46, it creates permanent fees that illegal immigrants must pay for their applications so American taxpayers aren't saddled with covering these costs. Number 47, it protects family farmers. Number 48, it ends abusive financing practices in Medicaid by freezing existing provider taxes and prohibiting new provider taxes. So basically, it ensures that states cannot improperly increase the federal government's cost share of state Medicaid programs at the expense of taxpayers. Number 49, and rounding out the 50 coming up, it reins in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's the brainchild of Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has long functioned as another woke, weaponized arm of the bureaucracy with minimal accountability or oversight. Number 50, it rolls back harmful Biden-era regulations that increase cost and administrative burdens with limited flexibility for states. Those are the 50 wins in the One Big Beautiful Bill, according to the White House, posted just yesterday, June 3rd, 2025, as we are, of course, now June 4th on this Wednesday. So if you'd like to check it out, again, I'll show it to you one more time here. It's whitehouse.gov. You can check it out. Also, the 50 wins in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Stephen Miller really breaking it down on X for those people that would like to look at that. And then also you can check out the bill yourself, congress.gov. You can see that the Big Beautiful Bill Act is right there for you to page through yourself as an American citizen and check it out. And you're going to see those 50 items that I just read from the White House in that bill. Again, it comes down to this, in my opinion. I like sometimes less is more, or sometimes the simple answer is really much more profound than this long-winded thing. But at the end of the day, it's about America first. That this money would go toward us. So people are like, oh, hey, you're going to increase the spending. It's like, wait, hold on. The money that was going to woke domestic policies in our country and foreign governments, remember Doge finding all of that out? Well, this is going toward, again, if you want to read those 50 reasons, number one, it delivers the largest tax cut in American history. It increases immigration security. So let's go there to Washington, D.C. for the GOP Leadership Press Conference.
I got the air turned down so we all stay awake. Well, good morning, everybody. And let me begin with this first. My thoughts and prayers go out and are with the victims of the anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado recently. The Jewish people should absolutely not have to face this violence anywhere, let alone in the United States of America. Recently, 2 young people were shot and killed in our nation's capital in an anti-Semitic attack. And if that wasn't enough, Holocaust survivors are now actually being burned alive. This is the outcome of everyone not condemning anti-Semitism everywhere, especially on our college campuses, which have become a breeding ground for vile hatred. And failing to condemn these acts are the same as enabling these acts. And the lack of consequences for those failing to condemn these acts has resulted in Jewish people dying. Let me be clear on that. Things have got to change. Otherwise, I hate to say it, buckle up, because that's not the last attack that we've seen. And we haven't seen the last attack on college campuses, synagogues, or communities coming to a place in your community. This type of anti-Semitic behavior needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with swiftly. And everyone, I'm going to repeat, needs to condemn this. And what makes the attack in Boulder even worse is that it was committed by an illegal alien. Wow, that's a shocker. Who could have predicted that? And I hate to say it, he might not be the only one plotting an attack. Why? Because under Biden, he let in tens of millions of illegal aliens. So the risk is even greater. Folks, this is a serious situation that we need to begin to deal with, and deal with it swiftly. And that's why the Senate must pass the one big beautiful bill. Congress must give our law enforcement officers the resource they need to detain and deport violent, illegal criminals. Given this shocking news, Democrats spent Memorial Day in El Salvador honoring and remembering MS-13 instead of here in our country honoring Americans who actually paid the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, honestly, what's next? Is a Democrat going to fly to Boulder to visit the illegal who burned Jews alive? Is that what's next for the Democratic Party? The contrast between Republicans and Democrats couldn't be more clear. Democrats stand with illegals. House Republicans stand with the American people. Democrats voted to raise taxes on hardworking Americans when not one Democrat voted for the big, beautiful bill. House Republicans, on the other hand, voted to avoid the largest tax increase in history. Democrats want your small businesses to close and for you to lose your jobs. House Republicans want Main Street to thrive and survive and flourish. When we passed the One Big Beautiful Act, we kept our promises. Despite constant doubt, now we urge our colleagues in the Senate to pass this transformational legislation. The American people can't wait any longer. This is a critical piece of history that we must get done. Now I want to turn it over to Rep. Mark Mesmer of Indiana, a member of the House Education and Workforce Committee, Armed Services, and Agriculture Committee. Thank you.
Thank you to House leadership for inviting me here to speak on the incredible success of the One Big Beautiful Bill. House Republicans are committed to delivering the golden age President Trump promised the American people when he ran for office. The reality is, because of the great investigatory work of DOJ and the Trump administration have made public, and our Agriculture Committee work in the House, there's actually far more fraud, waste, and abuse present in federal spending than anyone imagined. What has been uncovered is appalling. The One Big Beautiful Bill controls the growth of federal spending on SNAP and restores integrity to the bipartisan work requirements passed decades ago, protecting the SNAP program for those who truly need it. For the first time ever, the bill holds states accountable for inaccurate benefit payments. I believe our work marks a new era of efficiency and fairness by encouraging modest state contributions. I'm proud to say that the language passed on the House floor also includes historic investments in conservation to support the best stewards of our land, the American farmer. The bill refuses to neglect rural America. With incredible improvements to the farm safety net, our farmers will be supported as they bring healthy, safe, and affordable food to the kitchen tables of Americans. What we passed in the House is both a lifeline to those who need it most and a promise to the American farmer that we cannot and will not take lightly the importance of their hard-earned contributions to our nation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. On Sunday afternoon, we witnessed yet another horrific anti-Semitic terrorist attack on U.S. soil. while a peaceful group marched to call for the release of innocent hostages held by Hamas, an evil man launched a well-thought-out, deliberate attack intending to kill, quote, all Zionist people, end quote. As he threw Molotov cocktails into the crowd, he shouted, "Free Palestine." As you've already heard, we need to be clear about this. The violence we are seeing against the Jewish community here in America is a direct result of the left's refusal to condemn and combat anti-Semitism. Sadly, this evil ideology has not only been tolerated by the left, it has been encouraged and enabled. When rampant anti-Semitic behavior exploded on college campuses in the wake of October 7th, Joe Biden and the Democrats refused to hold these universities accountable. Even sitting Democrat members of Congress regurgitated talking points from Hamas terrorists and normalized riots that do the same. It's unacceptable. To add insult to injury, the Colorado terrorist was, again, an illegal alien who was allowed in the United States by the Biden administration. For 4 years, Joe Biden and the Democrats' failed open border policies welcomed unknown members of potential terrorists into our nation, setting the stage for scenarios like the one that we saw this week. By letting millions of unvetted illegal aliens into our communities, the Biden administration left a national security mess, and the Trump administration is racing to clean it up. Border security and deportation efforts are urgent. Lives are at stake. Our One Big Beautiful Bill strengthens these efforts by providing additional funding for more deportations, more Border Patrol agents, and more border wall. We're going to continue to work with the Senate to get this done for the American people. And as we've said every week since we started this march, failure is not an option. The safety of our communities depends on it. With that, I turn it over to our leader.
Thank you, Whip. We all mourn those who were the victims of these attacks here in Washington, D.C., as well as in Boulder, Colorado. And it just unfortunately highlights this continued anti-Semitism we've seen around the country. Last week I met with Jewish leaders, and they're understandably concerned about this trend that keeps going on. It's been going on for years. You go back to October 7th, and ever since then it's been a growing equivocation between almost trying to equivocate what the people who attacked and murdered Jews in Israel and Americans and kept hostages with those in Gaza who we've seen what Gaza's become, and all of those who want to clean up Gaza. President Trump's made it clear. Prime Minister Netanyahu's made it clear. They want to turn Gaza back into a place where you don't have to fear for your life that it's going to be a terrorist hotbed. And yet there are people that want to sympathize with the very terrorists who want to continue to not only carry out evil against Israelis, but against people here in America and all across the globe. It's got to stop. We're going to continue to bring legislation on the House floor to address it. Now, do want to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill. This House came together in a way that maybe surprised some people here in Washington. We've defied the odds every step of the way, from the first vote on the budget to the second vote on the budget to final passage. But there's a reason for that. And, as the whip just said, we've said all along, failure's not an option. I've been asked by some in the press, what's plan B, when there were reports that the bill was going to fail? And we were very clear, and it wasn't just a talking point. We said there is no plan B. The American economy, the voters of this country demanded that Congress deliver on the promises that President Trump made to get this country turned around. And what we do in this bill delivers on so many different fronts to help grow America's economy, to create jobs, to put more money in the pockets of hardworking families. That's been the focus of this bill from the very beginning. And I think there are some people that start reading too many Congressional Budget Office reports and ignore the lessons of history. And there's an old saying that if you ignore the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I think it's important to go down that road of history and go back to 2017. You don't need to go back that far to see how wrong the CBO has been when it comes time to make prognostications on economic growth. They've always been wrong, and they've always ignored what tax cuts will do to grow the American economy. In 2017, when we started this process, when President Trump came in and said, we're going to make America competitive again, we were at a 35% corporate rate, and we were losing jobs all across the globe. Every month, you'd see a great American company move to a foreign country, and they would take the jobs along with them. Millions of jobs were leaving America. They were called inversions. You don't maybe know that term as well anymore because we haven't had an inversion since we passed TCJA in 2017. But if you go back, look at what CBO said about that bill. They said it would cost a decrease in revenue to the tune of $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. Now, you go look at the numbers, they were off by more than $1.5 trillion. Because what they left out of that report, just like they're leaving it out again, CBO's making the same mistakes, they ignore economic growth. What we saw in 2017 when we cut taxes is that businesses started growing. They started giving pay raises to their workers. They hired millions more people. Unemployment went virtually to zero. Inflation dropped dramatically. People had more money in their pockets because wages were up. And all of those things produce more money for the American Treasury. It all happened, and yet CBO failed to recognize that. And they're making the same mistake again. And anybody who repeats CBO's analysis is also making those same mistakes. If you ignore the growth that will come with keeping tax rates low, with helping businesses invest more in their workers, giving pay raises, putting more money in the pockets of waiters and waitresses, overtime workers not having to pay taxes on overtime, bonus depreciation, immediate expensing, all the things that will generate economic growth and ultimately put more money in the pockets of workers and send more money up to the federal treasury here in Washington. CBO missed all of that in 2017, and they're missing it again this time. That's the only way they come to a conclusion that it would increase the deficit. This bill will actually reduce the deficit if you recognize the historical economic growth that has always been there. To say you're going to get 1.8% growth, at a minimum, we think you can get 2.5% to 4% growth. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says over 4% economic growth. So I get that, we've got to play by the rules of the referee, but the referee's been wrong. We got a referee that tries to sack our quarterback a lot, and yet we still manage to play by those rules and deliver for the American people, because when this bill is passed and signed into law, hopefully by July 4th, when the Senate does their work, you're going to see economic growth in this country like we haven't seen in generations, meaning more pay in the pockets of workers, and you're going to see more Treasury money coming in because of the growth in the American economy. It's happened before, and it will happen again. We just need to keep moving forward, and the Senate's got the bill now, and I'm confident they're going to move it on and ultimately back to us, to the president's desk. And finally, you saw yesterday, the White House sent the rescissions package. This is the first maybe of many. We are now putting that in bill format. We'll file that bill hopefully by tomorrow and then bring it up to the floor quickly and get rid of more waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. This will deal with, obviously, the abuses we all saw at USAID, NPR, and public broadcasting. So those are the things that are going to be in this rescissions package. We're going to continue working with President Trump to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and get the American economy turning around again. And the person who's leading that charge is our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Rarely do I get to raise the podium, so let me do this for a second. Great to see you all this morning. Look, our leadership team had very much looked forward to this press conference, our weekly press conference with you today, because we wanted to celebrate this historic passage of our big, beautiful bill 4 days before Memorial Day, our self-imposed deadline. And that's a big achievement, and I'll address it. But obviously, our attention has been diverted and our mood very much dampened by these atrocities that continue against our Jewish friends and neighbors. It's really something that's been discussed already this morning, but this attack over the weekend was actually the second time in 3 weeks that our country's witnessed these horrific acts of anti-Semitic terror here on American soil. And it was just, of course, a few miles down the road, 2 Israeli embassy staffers, a young couple who had planned to wed soon, were senselessly gunned down on the street. And the killer said, when they asked him what his motivation was, he said, quote, he did it for Palestine. This weekend, an Egyptian terrorist in Boulder, Colorado, Mohammed Soleiman, lit at least 12 Jewish people on fire. They were at a parade, an event there. He told police he wanted to kill every single one of them. And you know what he said when he yelled out during the attack? He said, "Free Palestine." We also can't forget that in April, a terrorist burned the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, attempting to kill Jewish Governor Josh Shapiro and his sleeping family inside. The search warrants found that the terrorist targeted Shapiro because of, quote, perceived injustices against Palestine. There's a theme here. Why would terrorists target a young innocent couple or peaceful protesters or the governor of an American state with no jurisdiction over a war that's happening 5,000 miles away? Because it isn't about Palestine, it isn't about Gaza, it isn't about any particular conflict. It's because these people want a complete and total extermination of the Jewish people. And there is a targeted left-wing anti-Semitic terror movement on the rise in America. And we have to address this first and foremost. Members of this institution and the media have a moral obligation to call this out. We do not equivocate, as the leader said. We do not both sides this issue at all. This is very clear. It's light versus darkness. It is an evil that we are confronting. And we'll continue to call it out, and the Trump administration and Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel will continue to pursue these anti-Semitic threats and actions against the Jewish people on our soil and to bring these violent criminals to justice. And we will speak with moral clarity, and we will demand the same of all of our colleagues in both parties to do that, and I hope they will. According to DHS, Solomon, this criminal, this violent, sick individual that did this stuff over the weekend, applied for a tourist visa in 2022. He applied for asylum. He's been living in the U.S. on an expired visa since March of 2023. If you apply Democrat logic to this case, Solomon was one of their constituents, as they say, and under their framing, he was just a Colorado man, right? But when you see Democrats ramping up attacks on ICE agents and storming ICE detention facilities and calling for the dismantlement of ICE, just know that this is who they're defending. This is the result. Fortunately, President Trump has quickly slammed the border shut by simply enforcing existing law, but this administration needs the resources to detain and process and deport the millions of dangerous illegals who President Biden welcomed into the country. And this is why we need the one big beautiful bill. One of the many reasons for President Trump's desk as quickly as possible to sign into law, because it, among the other features in the bill, it includes $45 billion to expand ICE detention capacity, $1 billion to hire 200 immigration judges and to expand immigration courtroom space. There's $1 billion in there to hire 2,700 new ICE Office of Principal Legal Advisor attorneys to expedite removal proceedings, and $14 billion for air and ground transportation sufficient to support at least 1 million removals per year. We need to go find the other Solomons and get them out of America, and that's what this bill will do. We got to get it signed into law as soon as possible. Yesterday, the House, changing subjects here, the House did receive the rescissions package from the White House, and we were happy to receive it. It's going to claw back $9.4 billion, wasteful spending. 8.3 of that is in the foreign aid, USAID abuses area, and $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. These are common sense cuts, and the American people are behind them. I'll tell you why. Just in the Corporation for Public Broadcasting space, don't forget, the NPR refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story. They repeatedly insisted that COVID-19 did not originate in a lab, and they ran stories defending looting during the Summer of Love, if you remember all that. Its CEO admitted that she regards, quote, truth as a harmful, quote, distraction from NPR's objectives. PBS produced a movie titled Real Boy, which celebrates a transgender teen's transition. This is all with taxpayer dollars. PBS has featured drag queens in programming for little kids. There is no reason for any media organization to be singled out to receive federal funds. We're in a different era now, especially those that appear to have so little regard for the truth. On the foreign aid front, we're cutting things like $6 million for net zero cities in Mexico, $4 million for sedentary migrants in Colombia, whatever that means, $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for teaching young children how to make environmentally friendly reproductive health decisions. We're not making this stuff up. $1 million for voter ID in Haiti, while they oppose voter ID here. This rescissions package is the manifestation of the DOGE effort, which has transformed the way American people view government, and it's going to ultimately ensure greater accountability in government going forward. In addition to codifying the work of Elon Musk and DOGE, this week the House will continue to codify the President's executive orders. We've got 3 of those on the floor this week. The list real quick, Representative Beth Van Dyne's American Entrepreneurs Act ensures taxpayer-funded loans go only to Americans, codifying President Trump's executive order to end taxpayer-subsidized open borders. Representative Brad Finstad's Save SBA from Sanctuary Cities Act moves SBA offices out of sanctuary cities and into non-sanctuary municipalities, and it will codify President Trump's executive order to protect American communities from criminal aliens. And the last one this week is Representative Rob Bresnahan's CEASE Act, which aligns with recent action taken by the Small Business Administration to restore oversight capabilities to the SBA by limiting the number of for-profit small business lending companies. These are common sense provisions. They deserve to be signed into law, and this is a continuing series of things that we've signed into law, executive orders. There are many more to come, and you'll see the House continue that effort in earnest this week. Let me take a few questions. I can guess what they'll be. Chad.
How can you explain the fact that Republicans voted for this interim spending bill back in March, greenlighting this money, and 2-3 months later, then you want to take back that money? That seems inconsistent.
Well, if you're talking about, for example, this USAID money and this kind of stuff,
That was approved in the CR back in.
Yeah, it was. And here's the point. This is a critical point. When I met with Elon in his office back in early February, he had just gotten into it. They were just uncovering the USAID abuses. And they went after USAID first for their review, their audits, because USAID screamed the loudest, opposed the loudest of this accountability measure. And so they effectively put, the scrutiny target on their own backs. And Elon and I were in his office late one night. We were talking about this, and I said he had finished USAID. They were just starting on Social Security, and he was finding all these abuses. And we were talking, and he and I were getting increasingly excited together about this new era of accountability. And it occurred to me we were excited for different reasons. And I said, Elon, you're excited because you're looking at this as a data analyst and a scientist, and I'm looking at it as a constitutional law attorney and a legislator and his novice historian, right? But this is about more than saving money. This is about restoring the framers' original vision for the Constitution. The framers of our magnificent form of government, our matchless Constitution, what they envisioned, and in fact what they designed, was a small, lean federal government. They wanted most of the power reserved for the states, for the people at a local level, the closer to the people, because there's more accountability and efficiency. And so the DOGE effort overall, what it does is it restores the framers' vision, because what Elon was able to do, what he's been able to do, what DOGE is able to do, its lasting legacy, is they cracked the code. They got inside the belly of the beast. He was inside the bureaucracy of the agencies with his algorithms, crawling, finding all the irregularities and the abuses. He did something we had never been able to do before, Chad, not as long as I've been in Congress in 9 years, and not for decades. I told Elon that night, I said, you're doing something that we were not capable of doing. We've tried to perform our oversight responsibility, but Congress has not been able to get the things that to uncover the abuses that you found. We didn't know we were funding transgender operas in Peru, obviously, right? We would have stopped that. But our committees did their diligent work. They've done oversight. They've had hearings with the heads of the bureaucratic agencies, the executive agencies. Subpoenas have been issued. But never did they turn over this level of data and this level of detail. It was unknowable to us until now. And so, yes, we can't act fast enough on these rescissions to claw back these abuses, because it happened without Congress's knowledge. And that's a really important thing to point to. And look, you give credit where credit is due, and I credit Elon and the DOGE effort for doing that.
Doesn't that undercut Congress? I mean, if that was
Congress... No, Chad.
I understand the uniqueness of his situation.
Yeah, but what it's going to do, the lasting legacy of this, and the reason it's so important, and the reason they deserve accolades, is because they have done a reset in Washington. Now, everybody knows what the abuse is, not just Congress, but the American people. And we'll be able to demand and ensure greater accountability going forward, and that is a huge innovation. Back row, yeah.
Elon Musk was sort of alluding to electoral threats against Republicans who voted for the big beautiful bill. I mean, he spent $290 million in the 2024 election. How much of a threat
Look, let me just address the Elon controversy and tell you that I consider Elon a friend. He's obviously brilliant. I just told you we credit him with all the big changes with Doge and everything else. It's curious to me what happened this week, and I mean, full disclosure, Elon and I had a great conversation, about a half-hour long talk on Monday this week. Monday morning, and we talked about the big beautiful bill, because I think he was trying to make a joke a couple of days earlier. It can't be big and beautiful, and I started the conversation. Oh yes, it can, my friend. It's very beautiful. So we talked about all the record level of savings. My friends, no government in the history of mankind has ever cut $1.6 trillion in a piece of legislation. We're doing that here. I mean, the extraordinary level of savings and the historic level of tax cuts at the same time, and all these great policy prescriptions. And I talked to Elon through all that and explained to him what we're doing, and that this is just the beginning of a long process of making government more efficient and effective, of cutting wasteful spending, fraud, and abuse. And you can't do it all in one bill. It took Congress decades to get to this situation. It's going to take us a little while to get out of it. But we have a very specific plan to do that. And Elon was encouraged by that conversation. It was a very friendly, very fruitful conversation together. And he and I talked about the midterm elections, and he said, I'm going to help. We got to make sure that the Republicans keep the House majority. We can't have the president impeached, which is what the Democrats would do on day one, as we all well know. And we've got to continue this. The Trump administration needs 4 years to do all this reform, not 2 years. The Biden administration, Biden-Harris, made such a disaster of every metric of public policy, it's going to take us more than one bill to fix it all. Elon and I left on a great note. We were texting one another, happy texts, Monday. And then yesterday, 24 hours later, he does a 180 and he comes out and opposes the bill. And it surprised me, frankly. And I don't take it personal. We don't take it personal. Policy differences are not personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better. This bill is geared for middle and working class Americans, and they are going to feel the effects of it, and they're going to feel it before the midterm elections. So I have no concern whatsoever. I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to win the midterms and grow the House majority, because we're delivering for the American people and fulfilling our campaign promises, and we'll see how that happens. Second row right here. Yes, ma'am.
Voted a second reconciliation package. What would be in that second package once you'll get to it?
You know I'm not going to tell you that this morning. Great question. No, yeah, let's get the first one done. Leader has been around Washington a while. Look, I said this is the beginning of a process, and what you're going to see is a continuing theme of us identifying waste, fraud, and abuse in government, which is our pledge of common sense, restoring common sense and fiscal sanity. So we have lots of ideas of things that might be in that package. But as you know, for the first reconciliation package, for the big beautiful bill, we worked on this for about 14 months. I mean, this wasn't something we just drew up overnight. So we'll go through that same laborious process, and it'll be fruitful in the end, and we'll do right by the American people. Front row.
You mentioned that you talked to Elon on Monday, made this 180. What do you think changed? Why do you think he's coming out against this now? And have you spoken to the president and Elon since the infamous?
Well, I'll tell you, I called Elon last night and he didn't answer, but I hope to talk to him today. I mean, it's not, it's very friendly, and we've laughed about our differences on policy before. I'm not upset about this, and I think he understands, and he's acknowledged to me before, that this is so serious that we can't fool around with it. I mean, the debt cliff is approaching very quickly, right? All the things that are in this bill are so important for the U.S. economy. It's going to be jet fuel for the U.S. economy. All boats are going to rise. And the sooner we do that, the better. And the risk of not getting it done is enormous, not just for the Republican Party, but for the country. We got to do this. We're going to have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of the year if we fail, and all the other calamities that we've talked about. So we've got to get it done, and I think Elon understands the weight of that, and I hope he comes around. I'd love to talk to him this week, and I hope he calls him back today. I talk to President Trump, all the time, multiple times a day. Obviously, we've talked about this. As you know, he's not delighted that Elon did a 180 on that. But look, I don't know what happened in 24 hours. Everybody can draw their own conclusions about that, okay? But I look forward to talking to my friend about it again, and I'm not upset about it, all right? Yeah. Olivia. Manu brought up EV mandates, not me, okay? And I said that everybody can draw their own conclusions about that. Look, I don't subscribe motive to anybody. I try not to do that. It's a good way to live. I just believe that we got to do the right thing by way of policy, and I hope everybody understands. They might not think the bill is perfect in some respect. I mean, a bill that's 1,100 pages long and covers every area of policy and the budget that ours does. Very few people are going to say that's a perfect piece of legislation. But I hope everybody will evaluate that in both parties and everybody and recognize, wow, the benefits of this far outweigh anything that I don't like about it. And that's why we're excited about it. And I hope our mood is not dampened next time we're together, because we're going to celebrate this thing, getting it over the line by July 4th. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, the GOP Leadership press conference just wrapping up. Only about 20 or so minutes long there. A lot of talk back and forth about the one big beautiful bill, of course. And we heard from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. So if you're just joining us now and you want to check that out again, all you can do is scrub back or rewind or watch it on replay. But thanks so much for streaming in for this live coverage. Our live coverage continues in just a few minutes. We're going to go to the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who just yesterday was speaking at an event, so we'll have that in its entirety. And then also on top of that, later tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern, RSBN host Robert McNeely will be here in studio to bring you coverage from Washington, D.C., the president participating in an event there later today. So 6 o'clock will be the start time later tonight. So again, 10:44 in the morning here on this Wednesday, June 4th, all brought to you by a number of great sponsors, including allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, because saving 20%, well, first of all, that's always a great thing, but what are you really saving 20% on? Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, essential medications, methylene blue, penicillin, amoxicillin, all sorts of medications that you can get right there at allfamilypharmacy.com with that 20% percentage decrease right there. So you pay less for prescription medications, 20% off. Also, you can bulk order a number of these medications and also get a lot of details at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Also, mypillow.com, 50% off the beach sale. So just go to mypillow.com/RSBN. And if you'd like to order a few items there for any trips to the beach, well, maybe the Gulf of America, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific, maybe the lake. Some of the lakes out there are absolutely gorgeous as well. So you have a beach sale there, 50% off. Use that RSBN promo code. It is 10:45 Wednesday, June 4th. Just watch the GOP Leadership Conference. A lot of talk out there about the big, beautiful bill. Of course, we went over the 50 wins inside the one BBB, the one big, beautiful bill. It's on whitehouse.gov. Also, the White House reminding the media that, Stephen Miller, the White House deputy chief of staff, has been putting a lot of information and content on his X account to really break down what this is all about. So if you need to check that out, it's Stephen Miller's account on X. Also, you can check out the bill for yourself if you like, congress.gov. And then, of course, if you really want to hear about those 50 reasons why, or 50 wins in the big, beautiful bill, all you have to do is scroll back on this broadcast. So we covered it here on the network. So again, 10:45 Wednesday, June 4th. As for the remainder of the week, according to the press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, on Monday, she said that the president would participate in a roundtable with law enforcement this week. So that may be happening tomorrow or Friday. We definitely know tomorrow will be the visit from Germany's new chancellor, Friedrich Merz, will visit with the president at the White House there. So we'll have that coverage here on Right Side. Again, including tonight, the president will be having an event there at the White House. We'll have that live for you here starting at 6 o'clock with Robert McNeely. Also, the future president's schedule, we're looking at 3 items we can share with you, and they're all in June. So, of course, June 14th, Flag Day, President Trump's birthday, the huge Army grand celebration for 250 years. We'll have our live coverage there. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to that whole event. More than 6,600 soldiers, 150 vehicles, 50 helicopters. A very patriotic day, as you see there, 1775 to 2025 and beyond. Some of the images and the graphics from the United States Army there. Looking forward to June 14th. Also, the president on June 15th through the 17th will attend the G7 in Canada. We haven't received word on which day he'll be there, but the 15th, of course, is a Sunday, which is Father's Day, and then the 16th is Monday. I believe if I were to pick, I think he's going to be there Monday the 16th, but we'll see. We'll have it for you as soon as we get it. We'll have live coverage on Right Side. Also, thanks to our COO and President Grace Saldana for reminding us about the NATO summit in the Netherlands. The president will be there from June 24th to the 26th. So some travel there for the president coming up. So we'll have that coverage here on Right Side. Let's go and do this. It's 10:47, Wednesday, June 4th. We're about to play the Vice President's remarks just yesterday in Washington at an event. We'll play that in its entirety. And then we'll be wrapping up our coverage today. But here's the thing. If there's any breaking news from now until later tonight or anything, we'll have live coverage here on the channel. You can always follow us on our social media platforms as well. We will be live, though, definitely at 6 o'clock Eastern today, as the president will be holding an event there at the White House. Kind of a fun event, it sounds like. So that'll be later today. We look forward to that coverage at 6 o'clock. Two more things to talk about before we get to the vice president. One, we're going to go to the Truth Social account of President Trump, just look at a few of the latest posts. And two, something that is the last day that we're going to do this here, at least, for just the shout out situation of the 10 states. We've been talking about each state every day for the past, 4 broadcasts. So we've been giving a shout out to 10 states over those 5 days, equaling, of course, 50 states in our union. So today is South Dakota to Wyoming. So we're going to give a shout out to all of you guys watching all across our great country. Genuinely thank you for watching, and also just share with your friends and family that conservative media is here to stay. I mean, there's so many different options in conservative media, which is great, but also think about it. It's not the mainstream woke junk that you've been unfortunately having to deal with over the past several decades. Now we have a new kind of way, and it's called conservative media. Now, here's the thing. Rush Limbaugh's the king of all that. He started it. Thank God for Rush, and thank God for President Trump calling out the fake news and the fact that we have so many options now, whether it's one person having their own show, whether it's a podcaster, influencer, or other conservative networks, including right here at Right Side. It's great to just see this upswing of what's happening for we the people, for people that are just like, hey, I want common sense. I want people to tell it like it is. I don't want any woke talking points. I don't want any false narrative lies from the mainstream media any longer. I really want people that I can resonate with and that speak from the heart and don't always have to use a teleprompter, which we're not using today. But nothing against using a prompter. You can use it once in a while. But thank God for just the ability to be able to communicate, just like Stephen Miller, Carolyn Levitt, President Trump, all of these great communicators to really talk about what this big, beautiful bill is about, but also just America first, we the people. It's all those rallies, rolled up into one. Every time we do a broadcast here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we don't forget about the rallies that have happened over the years and all of that excitement and all those chants of USA and all of those speeches, and not just living off of an emotion, but also living off of those words, that those promises made, promises kept, and all of that for our nation. And including for me, the most important of all is number 7 out of the 20 core promises is to defend our Constitution. So that's what we want here in our country, that freedom to continue to be intact outside of all of these great things that we are seeing happening right now. So the 10 state shout out, let's start with South Dakota. I got to find the list here before I read off the entire list. Let's see, where is South Dakota on here? All right, there it is. South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia. Of course, we'll go to Wyoming and a number of other states that we're going to get to here in a second. But before we do, let's go to that Truth Social account here by President Trump and check out a couple of his latest posts. One is the ADP number is out. So ADP, had to look it up, to be honest with you. ADP is the ADP report. It's the monthly report of economic data that tracks the level of non-farm private employment in the United States. It's published by the Automatic Data Processing. So ADP is Automatic Data Processing. So that's what that is. President Trump saying the ADP number out. Too late. Powell must now lower the rate. He is unbelievable. Europe has lowered 9 times. President Trump also 8 hours ago saying, quote, with the exception of the rigged presidential election of 2020, the auto pen is the biggest political scandal in American history. President Trump saying that some 8 hours ago, and then that recent post was a couple hours ago about the ADP. So we have a number of sponsors to thank here in just a second. Let's go with Colonial Metals Group, and then, of course, we'll talk to you about how to donate to the network. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. So there's BRICS nations out there trying to use their currency instead of our currency, and all sorts of financial headaches that are happening. But the thing that's great is there's medicine for that. It's called Maganomics, and inflation going down, and also the big beautiful bill will help. I mean, the taxes, think about the taxes that will be dropping. It'll be great. Outside all that, you have gold and silver as a backup plan, and your retirement or your savings. So you get all this information by going to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN is the place to get that free info kit. Also, speaking of Right Side Broadcasting Network, if you'd like to donate to us, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801. Just text RSBN to 801-801, and literally your money is going to freedom of speech, is going to the conservative media, is going to Right Side Broadcasting Network. So if you have a few bucks, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801. All right, let's shift gears now. Let's do this. Let's go to the Vice President. He was speaking just yesterday within the 24/7 news cycle at an event. We're going to hear the remarks and the Q&A back and forth in its entirety. I believe I did see the Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the event as well. So we're going to go to that. And at the end of the broadcast, we'll thank a few more states to close up that 50-state shout-out that I just felt like doing, just because we know that this union is made up of some great states out there. So love saying hello to everybody out there. At 10:54 this morning, and if there's any breaking news or any new developments that happen, you can count on us here at Right Side. We've got you covered on the channel live and also on social media, of course. Many great places to watch us, including Rumble out there. So thanks again for doing so. Let's go to the Vice President from just yesterday.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sit here. Yeah. Great. Great to see you all. I think the last time I was in here was the night before the inauguration. We had a dinner in here, and it was so tightly packed that you actually couldn't get up to go to the bathroom or request an additional glass of water. That's how tightly packed we were in here. And you guys are doing pretty good, actually. Maybe not that tight, but comfortable. But you're doing good.
Tastefully packed. That's well, happy medium.
Before you say whatever introductory thing you were going to say, I'm sure Orrin has a spiel. Orrin always has a spiel, but I just want to say thanks to Secretary Rubio for the very kind words of introduction. So, Marco, I was very fond of him as a Senate colleague, but you learn a lot about somebody when you see them actually operate behind the scenes. And Marco is, if anything, more impressive privately than he is publicly, which is very hard to do. But he's very thoughtful. He actually listens, which is a rare skill in politics. We're very good at talking. Us politicians, we're not so good often at listening. He's just a very, very important part of what the president and I are trying to do. And so thrilled to have him here. And as you know, I think one of the first times I ever met, maybe the first time I ever met Marco, was in a conference room in his Senate office with Mike Needham and Orrin Cass talking about some of the very things we're talking about here tonight and some of the very things American Compass is focusing on. So it's kind of amazing to see it come full circle to where we are today.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my spiel, so
Great.
Thank you. I had a few different spiels we could start with, but this is a good one. We are thrilled to have you here. I am thrilled to have this opportunity to talk with you, and so grateful that the work you're doing, and in a sense so in awe of it, because there are politicians out there who they've just been politicians, but you are someone who was an intellectual first. Some people don't like the word intellectual, but I mean it in the good sense of the term. you were writing for National Review. You were at the bar late at night arguing about and helping shape these ideas that you are now.
I come here for free and you insult me and you call me an intellectual.
Remind
me that I wrote for National Review. What an asshole this guy is.
That's fair. I will admit that I too wrote for National Review. But as I said in my introductory remarks earlier, I have no higher compliment than this guy likes to argue. So that is, it's a wonderful thing, and I think it really distinguishes you as someone who not just cares about and believes in these ideas, but has formed them.
Sure.
And so, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the substance of what's going on in a few of these topics, but also ask a little bit about sort of how your thinking has gotten here and how being in the role you're in now affects that, and what people who are not in that role need to understand to do it well. And so let's start here on the substance, though, because obviously trade is in the news from time to time. Trade is, and I think you've articulated this well, trade is one element of what is a much broader project about reshoring, reindustrialization. I want to ask you, how do you define that project? What is the broader goal that the trade agenda is part of, and where do you see it ultimately going if it's going to be successful?
Yeah, so first of all, congrats. I see here on the screen, this is the 5-year anniversary of American Compass. You guys have accomplished a lot in 5 years, and I'm going to echo what Secretary Rubio said. Keep doing it, because it really has influenced my thinking. It's influenced the thinking of multiple people within the administration. And if I were to try to summarize the project, I think there are a few different things going on, but maybe one thing that really worries me is you have, I think, in many ways, stagnating living standards for normal Americans, for the median worker, for people who just want to start a family, work in a decent job, earn a living salary, and have dignified work. I think you've seen so many pieces of evidence of stagnation in the lives of the normal people that we serve, right? The people who actually go to work, who keep the country running. And there are different ways to sort of measure this, but I think my favorite way of measuring it actually is probably you see stagnating productivity in this country for about 50 years, okay? And I think there are a whole host of reasons why you see that. I think, number one, we've offshored a whole host of industries, and so you see less innovation in a lot of the critical manufacturing sectors that actually drive the American economy. I think part of it is we've really underinvested in technology, especially in, the heavily regulated spaces. I think part of that is we've really harmed energy production in our own country. That's a critical part of, the heavily regulated spaces actually doing well, because the cost inputs of these industries are so heavily dependent on the price of energy. So there are all these different policy spins that I could put on it, but I just want normal people who work hard and play by the rules to have a good life. And I think that was very, very possible in the United States of America that I was growing up in, but you started to see some signs that it was fraying. And I think it got a lot worse over the course of the 90s and 2000s. And that has got to change. And I think that's fundamentally why Donald Trump is the President of the United States, is because he was the first mainstream American politician to come along and say, this isn't working. These trade deals are not working for the normal people who power our economy. Our policies have not been productive either in the economic, national security, or diplomatic space. So it's complicated. The answer to your question is complicated. Summarizing it is necessarily very hard. But I think the best way to summarize it is we just want normal people to have a good life.
That seems reasonable.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. I think that's obviously exactly right. I think it's remarkable that is or has been a heterodox view to some extent, that it's something that has had to be said, especially after your book came out, as you had a chance to talk with a lot of folks in a lot of different contexts, then as you moved into running as a politician yourself, you had a chance to speak both with the normal people for whom this was not working, and for a lot of people who either thought it was working or didn't care.
Sure.
My own sense is there's actually more thought it was working than didn't care. That for the most part, they're not bad people so much as oblivious. But I'm curious what your experience has been engaging with those folks. But how would you describe, what do they look out at America and see, and what is helpful in communicating to them why this is a problem and why they need to care?
Yeah, so let me give you kind of an elite answer to that question, and let me give you just a sort of normal political answer to the question. So the elite answer to the question, I remember, Orrin, talking to you about starting American Compass 5 years ago. And I think one of the things that we talked about, I don't know if you remember this, but, you know, what is the audience of donors, because these things cost money, funding fellowships and smart people to write papers and think about this stuff like that costs resources. Like, what is the universe of donors who would actually support something like this? And I think my takeaway of the last 5 years is actually quite a bit. And I think there's an assumption among, whether you call it populists or whether you call it, you know, sort of trade hawks or like whatever label you want to put on it, there's this assumption that donors are fundamentally misaligned. And I actually think donors are much more pragmatic, and they see this stuff not necessarily because, you know, they're reading like a paper that Bob Lighthizer published 15 or 20 years ago. And I know Bob's in the audience and I love Bob. But because like they do business in China and they know how hard it is to actually. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sit here. Yeah. Great. Great to see you all. I think the last time I was in here was the night before the inauguration. We had a dinner in here, and it was so tightly packed that you like actually couldn't get up to go to the bathroom or get, you know, like request an additional glass of water. That's how tightly packed we were in here. And you guys are doing pretty good, actually. Maybe not that tight, but, you know, comfortable. But you're doing good.
Tastefully packed. That's well, happy medium.
Before you like say whatever introductory thing you were going to say, I'm sure Orrin has a spiel. Orrin always has a spiel, but I just want to say thanks to Secretary Rubio for the very kind words of introduction. So, you know, Marco, I was very fond of him as a Senate colleague, but you know, you learn a lot about somebody when you see them actually operate behind the scenes. And Marco is, if anything, more impressive privately than he is publicly, which is very hard to do. But he's very thoughtful. He actually listens, which is a rare skill in politics. We're very good at talking. Us politicians, we're not so good often at listening. He's just a very, very important part of what the president and I are trying to do. And so thrilled to have him here. And as you know, I think one of the first times I ever met, maybe the first time I ever met Marco, was in a conference room in his Senate office with Mike Needham and Orrin Cass talking about some of the very things we're talking about here tonight and some of the very things that American Compass is focusing on. So it's kind of amazing to see it come full circle to where we are today.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my spiel, so
Great.
Thank you. I had a few different spiels we could start with, but this is a good one. We are thrilled to have you here. I am thrilled to have this opportunity to talk with you, and so grateful that the work you're doing, and in a sense so in awe of it, because there are politicians out there who they've just been politicians, but you are someone who was an intellectual first. Some people don't like the word intellectual, but I mean it in the good sense of the term. You were writing for National Review. You were at the bar late at night arguing about and helping shape these ideas that you are now.
I come here for free and you insult me and you call me an intellectual.
Remind
me that I wrote for National Review. What an asshole this guy is.
That's fair. I will admit that I too wrote for National Review. But as I said in my introductory remarks earlier, I have no higher compliment than this guy likes to argue. So that is, it's a wonderful thing, and I think it really distinguishes you as someone who not just cares about and believes in these ideas, but has formed them.
Sure.
And so, you know, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the substance of what's going on in a few of these topics, but also ask a little bit about sort of how your thinking has gotten here and how being in the role you're in now affects that, and what people who are not in that role need to understand to do it well. And so let's start here on the substance, though, because, you know, obviously trade is in the news from time to time. Trade is, and I think you've articulated this well, trade is one element of what is a much broader project.
Sure.
About reshoring, reindustrialization, I want to ask you, how do you define that project? What is the broader goal that the trade agenda is part of, and where do you see it ultimately going if it's going to be successful?
Yeah, so first of all, congrats. I see here on the screen, this is the 5-year anniversary of American Compass. You guys have accomplished a lot in 5 years, and I'm going to echo what Secretary Rubio said. Keep doing it, because it really has influenced my thinking. It's influenced the thinking of multiple people within the administration. And if I were to try to summarize the project, I mean, I think there are a few different things going on, but maybe one thing that really worries me is you have, I think, in many ways, stagnating living standards for normal Americans, for the median worker, for people who just want to start a family, work in a decent job, earn a living salary, and have dignified work. I think you've seen so many pieces of evidence of stagnation in the lives of the normal people that we serve, right? The people who actually go to work, who keep the country running. And there are different ways to sort of measure this, but I think my favorite way of measuring it actually is probably you see stagnating productivity in this country for about 50 years, okay? And I think there are a whole host of reasons why you see that. I think, number one, we've offshored a whole host of industries, and so you see less innovation in a lot of the critical manufacturing sectors that actually drive the American economy. I think part of it is we've really underinvested in technology, especially in, the heavily regulated spaces. I think part of that is we've really harmed energy production in our own country. That's a critical part of, the heavily regulated space is actually doing well because the cost inputs of these industries are so heavily dependent on the price of energy. So there are all these different policy spins that I could put on it, but I just want normal people who work hard and play by the rules to have a good life. And I think that was very, very possible in the United States of America that I was growing up in, but you started to see some signs that it was fraying. And I think it got a lot worse over the course of the 90s and 2000s. And that has got to change. And I think that's fundamentally why Donald Trump is the President of the United States, is because he was the first mainstream American politician to come along and say, this isn't working. These trade deals are not working for the normal people who power our economy. Our policies have not been productive either in the economic, national security, or diplomatic space. So it's complicated. The answer to your question is complicated. Summarizing it is necessarily very hard. But I think the best way to summarize it is we just want normal people to have a good life.
That seems reasonable.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. I think that's obviously exactly right. I think it's remarkable that is or has been a heterodox view to some extent, that it's something that has had to be said. Especially after your book came out, as you had a chance to talk with a lot of folks in a lot of different contexts, then as you moved into running as a politician yourself, you had a chance to speak both with the normal people for whom this was not working, and for a lot of people who either thought it was working or didn't care.
Sure.
My own sense is there's actually more thought it was working than didn't care. That for most, they're not bad people so much as oblivious. But I'm curious what your experience has been engaging with those folks. But how would you describe, what do they look out at America and see, and what is helpful in communicating to them why this is a problem and why they need to care?
Yeah, so let me give you kind of an elite answer to that question, and let me give you just a sort of normal political answer to the question. So the elite answer to the question, I remember, Warren, talking to you about starting American Compass 5 years ago. And I think one of the things that we talked about, I don't know if you remember this, but, what is the audience of donors, because these things cost money, funding fellowships and smart people to write papers and think about this stuff, that costs resources. What is the universe of donors who would actually support something like this? And I think my takeaway of the last 5 years is actually quite a bit. And I think there's an assumption among, whether you call it populists or whether you call it, sort of trade hawks or whatever label you want to put on it, there's this assumption that donors are fundamentally misaligned. And I actually think donors are much more pragmatic, and they see this stuff not necessarily because, they're reading a paper that Bob Lighthizer published 15 or 20 years ago. And I know Bob's in the audience and I love Bob. But because they do business in China. and they know how hard it is to actually get a fair deal for their companies. Or, they've seen some of the ways in which, I met with an industry leader today who was talking about all of the ways in which transshipping through non-Chinese Asian economies is destroying his very successful manufacturing business. And he's not worried about it for himself because his business is so successful, but he's worried about it for his industry writ large because some of his competitors are going to have their businesses destroyed. He doesn't want that. So there's a bit there. I think one thing to take away is that people are much less ideological and much more pragmatic than I think that a lot of the intellectuals give them credit for. So that's one thing I take away. I think the other thing that I take away from it is the American people are much more aligned with our way of thinking about things than people realize. And I think the misalignment between the normal American and the talking heads in Washington is still so profound. And I'll give you an example of this. One of the very first truly political speeches I gave when I was thinking about running for Senate in Ohio back in 2021, I spoke to this group in Butler County, Ohio. It's actually the county that I was born and raised in southwestern Ohio. And I was talking about how, big tech was a major problem. Censorship of viewpoints was a major problem, and we needed to get serious about antitrust, and we need to get serious about actually treating these companies as the monopolists that they were. And a person came up to me afterwards and they said, "Oh, I really liked what you said, but I didn't agree with what you said on big tech." And I sort of assumed that I was about to, sort of hear a kind of libertarian argument from the pages of the National Review. And what the guy said is, "I don't think that we should break these companies up. I think we should throw all of their executives in prison." And I was like, "Oh." And it sort of dawned on me, the American people, they see these problems. They're not hyper ideological. They're not reading conservative intellectual periodicals because they have day jobs and families to take care of, but they're much, much wiser about these things than intellectuals give them credit for. And I take a lot of inspiration for that, but I also take a lot of willingness to kind of test the outer limits, because most of our fellow Americans, they're not nearly as dumb as Washington, D.C. assumes that they are. They're actually very smart and they're very wise.
Yeah. It's funny. I was speaking to the American Iron and Steel Institute this morning about the idea that making things matters. And I was sharing a similar story because we've done survey research on, okay, do you think manufacturing matters or not?
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly, people say yes.
Yes.
Sure. But we actually asked them why. We gave them a bunch of options. Is this about, family and community and good jobs? Is this about national security? Is this about sort of dynamism and investment and economic growth? I sort of figured it would be it's about jobs, maybe security. And Americans actually picked dynamism and growth as by a significant margin. That was their top reason they cared. And that was across political groups. That was across classes, less educated, more educated, high income, low income. And exactly to your point, I think it's just something we don't give people enough credit for. I mean, not only are they quite wise in this respect, they are so much wiser than the economists who got this exactly wrong for so long. I was struck by the speech that you gave at the American Dynamism Conference, which I think touched on a lot of this, because you focused on what is on one hand a real challenge in the new conservative coalition, where on one hand you have the working class, you have labor, on the other hand you have technologists, folks who are very focused on innovation. And I think you made what is a critical point, which is that these are not necessarily in conflict. Ultimately, success is defined by the extent to which we synthesize these things.
Yes.
I think conceptually, in my mind, that's absolutely right. In practice, that can still be hard. I think there are a lot of places where you still see these collisions. Where do you see the biggest opportunity to actually bring these folks together, to actually build on that idea and show that, no, in fact, you do have the same interests. There is a real opportunity to move forward here?
Well, I think that it's interesting you mentioned the American Dynamism speech, because I do think that's actually where the synthesis is, right? That if you believe in growth and you believe that, to have any opportunity to make people's lives better, you actually need sustained GDP growth. then you actually need to have the kind of industries that can support broad-based technological innovation. And so I think that really is the combination. Like, why do I care so much about manufacturing? And why do I care so much about the kind of educational institutions we have to support those industries? It's because, yes, I care about workers and I care about their wages, but I do very much care about innovation, and I don't think you can have one without the other, right? So the classic way of talking about this is to say, well, you know, if you open up an iPhone and you look at the box, it will say designed in Cupertino, California, right? And of course the implication is that it's manufactured in Shenzhen. In reality, it's not necessarily even designed in Cupertino, California anymore. It's increasingly designed in the place that's manufacturing it. This idea that we can separate the making of things from the innovating of things is, I think, totally farcical. You see this in pharmaceuticals in particular, where I think the countries that are really good at manufacturing pharmaceuticals, especially like the next-gen biologics and large molecule pharmaceuticals, those guys are increasingly really, really good at innovating in pharmaceuticals too. And, you know, one way this has come up in our work in the White House, and I won't get into sort of too many of the hairy details, but, you know, we've been thinking about how to solve a particular problem, meaning a particular kind of product that right now we have access to, but we're starting to ask ourselves these questions about, like, well, what happens if the country that we're trading with completely cut off access to this stuff? And so we're thinking a lot about the supply chain, about how brittle our supply chains are. And by the way, one thing that is shocking about the prior government, about the government we inherited the White House from, is if I, on January the 21st, in fact, I did ask this question, where are the biggest deficiencies in our supply chains? What are the 100 products that we're completely reliant on some other entity to make for us? Where are they made, and how hard would it be to onshore that manufacturing? I asked that explicit question, and the answer was, we don't know. Nobody in the prior government had actually asked these very fundamental questions. And so what is so crazy about the hyper-globalized era is that you had these basic questions about the brittleness of our supply chains that were completely uninvestigated by the very people who supported globalizing those supply chains. We were actually governed by complete morons, and we didn't even realize it until the Trump administration started to get underneath the hood of our government. But to take it back to sort of the point that I was trying to make. Okay, if you want to onshore this one piece of the supply chain, what kind of talent would you need in the labor force to make that possible? And I started talking to, you know, venture capitalists and technologists and people who run sort of industries in this space. And what kept on coming back is, okay, yes, there's a tariff question, there's a revenue guarantee question, there's a capital question. You know, how do you actually form the capital? How do you get the capital goods necessary to make the stuff that you're going to have to make? But the thing that everybody kept on coming back to is we don't even have the people who are skilled in this particular trade anymore because we've so offshored it. And, you know, you realize the point about trade policy, all of this stuff is connected. But when you atrophy critical skills in the economy, it's not easy just to flip that switch back on. And I think that was the way in which the advocates of globalization were the most wrong, is they allowed the best skilled trades workforce in the history of the world to become a little bit atrophied. And I think we're still very good. Like, we actually have a pretty strong foundation from which to build, but we're actually not as good as we were 30 years ago. And the basic question of skilled craftsmen who are able to do a whole host of different things very rapidly. That's one of the things that we have to fix in order for us to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. The president's very focused on that, but it drives home, I mean, how much of a national emergency we're in, that we've lost critical skills, and we weren't even aware that we had lost those skills until a few months ago.
Yeah. And of course, the part that drives me nuts about it is the same people who said it does not matter where things get made.
Yes.
It does not matter if all this goes overseas. Now it's overseas, you say, like, well, why can't we bring it back? And they say, oh, well, because we lost all the expertise. The expertise is super important. And
yeah.
You want to, you know,
right.
Somewhere you wonder, like, do they even, like, are they trying to lose? You know, it's rough.
I think it's very hard for them to realize that the sum of their work, and a lot of these people are good people, a lot of them are well-intentioned, it's very hard, and I saw this in the United States Senate, to look back on a 30, 40, or 50-year career and say, the very thing that I tried to do, I accomplished the opposite, right? It takes a special person to be able to actually change and pivot and accept new information. And unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of those people in the leadership class of the country. I mean, the way in which this is most absurd is you know, the people who are most pro-globalization, the people who are most indifferent to whether a given part of the supply chain existed here or China or Russia or somewhere else, those are very often the same people who want us to fight wars all over the world with munitions that are increasingly made by the very people that we offshored our supply chains to. And the fact that, you know, I saw this in the Senate, the fact that you would have people say we should send an unlimited number of munitions to this conflict, even though we don't make those munitions in the United States of America anymore, the complete disconnect between their views on foreign policy and economic policy made me realize again that we're governed by people who aren't up to the job. Until 4 months ago, when the American people actually gave the country a government it deserved, and obviously we're very early days, but I think that we've done more in 4 months to solve these problems. But this is not a 5, a 10, or this is a 20-year project to actually get America back to common sense economic policy.
Well, thank you. That was a real downer for a moment. I appreciate you brought the mood back up. This is very helpful. Let's talk about the workforce piece and education, because you mentioned education system, which at this point, interestingly, means almost two different things. Yes. There's what is going on with universities, and there's what is going on with how we would actually train people in these kinds of skills that we need, that would be good jobs. I guess it's a two-part question. On the university side, do you see what's going on there as mostly sort of just a sideshow minimizes it? It's incredibly important, but it is unrelated to the question of how we actually reskill correctly? Or do you think these two things fit together somehow, that we need to get the universities more engaged in this process and also have other ways to do it?
I think of it as extremely connected, though it's not necessarily obvious at the surface level. I mean, first of all, I never expect Harvard or Yale or, you know, the Ohio States of the world. They're not primarily going to be doing skilled craftsman training. Okay, some of the state schools you might see that, but really this is going to be something that happens with particular, you know, unions are going to have a big role in this, community colleges are going to have a big role in this, industry is going to have a big role in this. I don't think the skilled crafts are going to be brought back by the 4-year-plus university. That's just not their role. But what the 4-year-plus university, one of the most important things that it does, obviously it trains hopefully very smart people, but it produces really the ground level of the innovation that the economy is going to run on for the next 10 or 15, 20 years. Okay, so if I want people in Indiana to be manufacturing the next generation pharmaceuticals, those pharmaceuticals have to get developed in the first place. And for them to get developed in the first place, I need places like Harvard to be doing really groundbreaking biomedical research. What I don't need out of Harvard is for the science to be so broken that 80% of the biology papers produced don't actually replicate. And that reproducibility crisis is one of the main reasons why I think universities are broken. What I really don't need to happen is I can't let Harvard have such an explicitly racist and in violation of the Civil Rights Act approach to how it funds and trains scientists that the best and the brightest are being cut out of that process altogether. So these things are very much connected. But, I mean, look, I am not anti-university. I'm not anti-Harvard. What I am is a person who recognizes what should be obvious to every single person at every elite university in the country, which is the model is broken, it doesn't work, and they're violating the social contract they have with the people of the country, and the people are now saying, we need you to change. And these institutions are really going to be confronted, and thanks to President Trump, have already been confronted with a choice. You can accept democratic accountability and you can reform, or you can accept that the government is not going to treat you kindly. We're not going to fund your garbage, and we're not going to support you unless you do the job the American people need you to do.
That is very well said. I found myself at one of these universities speaking to a faculty board the day after the $9 billion Harvard announcement.
Did you tell them you knew me?
It may have come up. It may have come up.
I'm surprised you survived.
You know, the thing about the faculty board in Ivy League universities, it's not the most imposing environment in many respects.
They're not known for their toughness.
No, that is true. I'll let you stand on that particular point. But this actually happened to me a few times. I, in fact, also was scheduled to go to Canada 2 days after you made the Canada announcement. I may need to run my travel plans by some more folks. But it was fascinating to have this exact discussion and essentially to try to make the point, nobody wants you to fail, but you are in a sense a quasi-public institution. You are relying on enormous both explicit and implicit public subsidy and participation in this contract that you have been violating wholesale for a generation. And so our preference would be that you guys decide to reform, but if you don't, this is the alternative. What do you think, what does reform look like? You described some of the things that, you know, are particularly problems. I guess to some extent the reform is just stop doing that. But what do you aspire to for our higher education system?
You know, I'd say a few things. I mean, one, most obviously, is why don't you just follow the civil rights laws of the country? Like, that's a very easy thing to do, and that nearly every elite university in the country is explicitly not doing. Okay, so that's one thing that they might consider doing. I think the second thing is they've got to be willing, and I have a friend of mine who's a geneticist, very bright, you know, very bright young scientist. We have got to have a scientific community that is more open to unacceptable inquiry and that actually encourages bright young minds to go wherever the truth leads them. And I think that's where the universities have become almost quasi-theocratic or quasi-totalitarian societies. I mean, the way that I think about this is, you know, I don't know what the voting, you know, the voting in the 2024 election of Harvard University's faculty was. Okay, my guess is that at least 90% and probably 95% of them voted for Kamala Harris, right? Very brilliant Kamala Harris, of course. But, you know, if you ask yourself a foreign election, a foreign country's election, and you say 80% of the people voted for one candidate, you would say, oh, that's kind of weird, right? That's like not a super healthy democracy. If you said, oh, 95% of people voted for one party's candidate, you would say that's North Korea. Right, that's totalitarian. That is impossible in a true place of free exchange for that to happen. And so I think the ideological diversity of these universities has to get much better. And I think that if that got better, if you actually had a place where people were open to debating these things and weren't terrified they were going to lose their job for saying something that was a little bit outside the Overton window, then I think the science would get better, the reproducibility would get better, the quality of the institution would be so much better. And that's what I want, because we need high-quality universities. Right now the problem is we don't have them.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question.
Great.
This is usually an awful cliched question, but in this case it's extremely relevant. As I think you know, one of American Compass's key activities, we have what we call our membership group. It's now more than 250 young policy professionals. Dozens of them are in the administration. They're senior staff on Capitol Hill. They're in think tanks. They are why I am so optimistic about the future and what I think is most important about our organization. And so it is not at all a cliche to ask, what is the advice you would give to younger people, admittedly not that much younger, who are deeply engaged in bringing about this kind of change? What do you need? What should they be doing more of? What are the things that maybe no one's doing because it's just not as much fun, but it's incredibly important? What are the things that never occurred to you needed to be done until you got to where you are now that you would like to assign to them all before you leave?
So I've reached this stage of my career, I guess, where I'm now the old guy.
You are the old
to
guy.
Offer advice to all of you. Again, you started out by calling me an intellectual, and your final question is effectively, "Hey, old man, give advice to all of these young people here." But let me say a couple of things. So first of all, I think that you guys should go forth with a lot of confidence, because the conversations that are happening in this room and amongst all of you are far more interesting and far more influential in the policy conversation than almost anything else that's happening in Washington, D.C. There was a time in my life when I was incredibly, I didn't like to talk about trade policy because I didn't have a PhD in economics. Well, it turns out that a lot of the people who had PhDs in economics were flagrantly wrong, and they were given...
Would you like to be the chief economist at American Compass?
I already have a job, man.
We can do an honorary one. It turns out the title...
Ask Marco Rubio. He's got like 5 jobs. Maybe he'll take on a 6th. But I think that there is still, among especially well-educated D.C. conservative types, there is still this sort of apprehensiveness about, well, I don't have this credential, so should I not opine on this topic? And I think that in reality, you've got to realize that the people who grant these credentials have been gatekeepers, and their ideas and their entire work in Washington has served to make the people that they should be serving poorer and less happy, has reduced their life expectancy, and has made the national security of the country weaker. Ignore those people. They don't matter, and you have to beat them and not worry so much about what they think. That's one piece of advice. I mean, this is, to me, the fundamental thing about our country. Right? There's so much good in it. There's so much brilliance in it. We still have the best science and technology in the world. There's so much that I'm optimistic about. The thing that really worries the hell out of me is that you have people in Washington who have been calling the shots for 40 years, and the life expectancy of their country has dropped. And if that doesn't cause you to look in the mirror and say, maybe I should be doing something different, then there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And so I've given up hope that we can persuade most of the think tank intellectuals of Washington, D.C. to change. We can't change them. What we can do is replace them with all of you, and that's exactly what we aim to do. That's number one. The second piece of advice that I'd give is, look where we are, right? This is a beautiful, beautiful place. Again, the last time that I was here, I was about to be inaugurated as the 50th Vice President of the United States, like literally the next day. Like, this is a very cool place to get to spend an evening. I'm sure the food is great. I'm sure the company is even better. But try to remember that all of this, the job that I have, the white papers that you write, the work that you do, it is all in the service of making normal people have a better life. And so try to find opportunities to actually get out there and see the effects of what you're doing has on the American population. Try to get out there and get to know your fellow Americans. Try to not be the problem with the generation of DC intellectual that was so broken is they were so cloistered, they had no idea that they were about to get hit by a freight train. Don't ever be those people. Learn the lessons. I think one of the lessons you have to learn is be more open and be more willing to sort of test the Overton window. A lesson is that you've got to have conversations with everybody and not like try to cloister yourself off from everything that's happening intellectually in this town. But I think the most important lesson is to get out there and know the country that you serve. And every single one of you in some form or another are serving this country that all of us love so much. I think that if you actually get out there, it will give you an incredible optimism and hope for the country, but it will also, most importantly, give you an incredible sense of duty. You all are lucky to be here. You're lucky to have the influence on this country that you do. So get out there and do your duty with optimism and hope and a recognition that you're lucky to get to have the life that you do. Use that life to serve the people that all of us love so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Please join me in thanking J.D. Vance.
Thank you
for everything you do.
great fireside chat there by the Vice President just yesterday, and airing it right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's 11:46 this morning. Thanks so much for streaming in with us. We will thank a number of sponsors, of course. We thank all of them for being a part of this broadcast. Also, we're going to have more details about each of our sponsors, of course, later today at 6 o'clock. Robert McNeely live in studio. As President Trump will be holding an event at the White House, we'll have that live for you right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And just to round out our last few states, our 50-state shout-out, 4 more states to say hello to and thank you for watching, including in Washington State, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Thank you guys so much for watching from across the country and in some cases around the world right here on RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go ahead and stream in again later today at 6 o'clock. If there's any breaking news before that, we'll be here for you. 6 o'clock later today, we'll see President Trump. We'll see you later.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.